We were talking about what could we share with applicants to conservatories, composition applicants, but really any conservatory student, things to think about that might help a student get some kind of leg up or get some kind of inside information about how to apply to a school and to put their best foot forward. Before the application, when we're talking about materials, composers usually have to send in scores. What should those scores look like, or what do you think of that? Either Jonathan or Nina.
Look at published music, see what it actually looks like, and then attempt to replicate that yourself.
You can base this on models, and so not only can you go to the library and get scores, but there are lots of online resources as well now, such as there are 3 score follower websites where you can look at chamber music that's been written in the last 15 to 20 years and see what are engraving standards. You can also go and find some of your favorite composers and see what does their music look like. Don't follow the default settings of your engraving program.
Yes.
That a good score does not make.
Let's talk about that for a second.
Well, the default setting looks like a homework assignment. There are certain sizes and parameters and instructions where you can say, okay, somebody decided to just input the music really quickly into here and didn't necessarily care about what the final deliverable would look like. So putting some effort in to making it look more like something that you would purchase is important. And this means reading the manual and saying, okay, what is my staff size? What fonts am I using? How am I distributing the music across the page? Am I using the correct paper size?
A lot of the programs now are designed to make the music you input sound good as soon as you push play. For those of us who are looking at scores and adjudicating, we really don't want to hear the computerized version. We want to see that the music on the page suggests that you have actually heard what that's going to sound like in real life.
And I think so many composers are now composing in the software. And so there's a difference between, just like, when people were only composing on paper, you had your sketches, and when you made your final version of the score, you changed things. And that has to happen in the software as well. So if you're composing using the software, that's part of the composing process, and there's still engraving to be done.
All of this is after having really great music, right?
Yes.
Of course.
I mean, that's a given, and we should just say that out loud, that of course the music is the first thing.
We would rather see your music written out by hand and see some actual musical ideas on the page than we would like to see a great engraved score that's got lots of information and looks great on the page, but when you start to look at the notes, it's clear that the composer spent all their time making it look great on the page and not actually writing some music.
What do you submit for sound recordings?
It's always better to have live performance, but I understand that some people, you can see in a composition application if the opportunity doesn't present itself. But I think having some live performance is always important.
It seems with MIDI and with technology today as it is, there's some access to something realized that could at least be passable for a lot of people.
Yes, I think if you wanted to spend a lot of time, there are ways that you can make your MIDI renditions sound much better. But I would say don't spend all of your time doing that. It's best to spend your time actually composing.
Mm-hmm. What about contacting teachers beforehand? What about, how do you do that? And what are your thoughts on it? Because not everyone agrees.
On the one hand, it can be helpful to have a face to go along with the name. If you have a stack of applications and you've made a personal connection with someone, I think that can, in some circumstances, help. Again, most of us want to see that the majority of the effort has been put into presenting the best music you have possible. So I would rather somebody work hard at getting a good performance of a piece than make a real effort to travel to come and meet me in person before submitting their application, because ultimately it still comes down to what they submit in the application.
You can also send an email and ask some questions about the school that you sincerely have. And I think it's always good to make some kind of effort of contact if it's a place that you really want to go to, because we are human and we have name recognition, and if we can see that you care, it's not going to make or break your application, but we might remember you a little extra.
Even if you don't hear back, or even if it takes a long time for a reply, it doesn't mean that they're not interested. And perhaps you've still made a good impression by sending a well-written email expressing your interest in the school.
Yeah, well written,
Absolutely.
not being like, hey,
Yes.
Use punctuation.
right.
Yes.
Some people don't know this, that when you apply to a school, you can ask them to waive the application fee. Some schools, I think many schools will do this if it is a financial hardship for you. So one thing I would say across the board is ask. That just because you see these rules there does not mean that there aren't human beings on the other side of this stuff.
Sometimes if you get in touch with the faculty, they might not have the response time, but many schools have a dedicated admissions counselor.
good,
And
right.
all of these administrative questions, you should always either CC or send them the same email, because they'll be able to, their job is to answer you and give you advice in all these areas.
Who do you ask for a reference? What if you don't have, what if you haven't been studying with Mozart and Beethoven?
A band director, or if you do music in a church, ask someone who is familiar with your musical activities and someone who you feel is going to best convey your enthusiasm about wanting to study music or wanting to study at a particular school.
Yeah, I would say your musical activities and also your potential to be a good student.
Yes.
What about essays? Because we do read the essays that people submit. So what guidance do you have about submitting an essay?
I want to know who you are and why you want to come here, and I want to know what your story is, and not this imagined idea of what you think the composer is supposed to say.
Right, you'll see a lot of platitudes, right? And you kind of end up skimming over those parts.
Yeah, I don't read those parts.
How do you pick the schools that you apply to?
For me, the process was really looking at schools that I thought were a good place for what I wanted to study.
I think that nothing should stop you. If you want to work hard, you should try to figure out what you want to do and then work hard to obtain that. Don't be inhibited by what you think the institution means.
I think there's also all of the unknowns. What is it that a school is looking for in this year's group of applicants? Who's actually applying this year versus who applied last year or the year before? How many people are applying? These are things that you can't know, and even if you did know the answer to them, there's still going to be other unknown factors that go into who ends up getting accepted into any particular program. And then once you apply, know that there are many other decisions that go into who gets accepted. It's not just who the best applicant is. Whether you get in or not, it's not necessarily a value judgment about you as an artist, but rather who was the right fit at that point in time, which I think is a hard lesson for anybody to learn.
We've had people come to Curtis. It's a very competitive school. People who've come here who have not won awards, who have not, had their pieces played by the New York Philharmonic, and who are coming in just with incredible fire in the belly, incredible desire and enthusiasm, and enormous potential, great ideas. What are some questions that you would ask prospective students in an interview?
I know that we like to ask who it is you're listening to. Again, this may vary in various places, but we're sort of open-minded. I want to know who you're listening to in terms of people that are doing what you have come here to do, but also what are your interests outside of the focus you're going to have here? What are you bringing to the program that's maybe interesting or unique or at least personal to you? And then we may ask questions about, why is it that you want to come here, which may be similar to what someone would ask in an essay.
The teachers, the people doing the interview want to see some sense of knowledge of contemporary music, of living composers. So say I'm a student who doesn't have that. How do I find that? How do I find that information?
If you think that you want to be a composer, you should go and start researching who are the living composers, what are the different styles of music and composition available, what are these people's careers, who are role models for you that are 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years older, and where did these people go to school, and where can you hear their music? Another way to find this would be to look at performers and ensembles who specialize in 20th and 21st century music and see who are the people that they're programming. And use that as your sort of entryway playlist and then branch out from there.
It's a great coda to the conversation, the after the interview process, right? Send a note.
Absolutely. I think remember that the people that you're talking to are actual human beings and not these lofty professors in their ivory towers. They're artists who want to engage with people as much as you do, and you probably have more common ground than you might imagine. So be yourself and engage with them in the way you would with anybody.
Great words. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.